Hello, thank you for joining us. Dr. Erickson, EHS Physical Therapy Chiropractic, your herniated healthy disc expert. And?
Dr. Jake Anderson here with Essential Motion Spine and Sport.
Okay, so let's go over today a very popular group of exercises that a lot of people have read, have tried. When you do your research and you have some kind of spine injury, this is more specific to the low back probably. We deal with stuff in the upper, in the upper thoracic, lower cervical spine as well. But we're going to tailor this talk kind of specific to the lower back. So there's a group of exercises commonly attributed to a man named Stuart McGill, professor, researcher, that kind of thing, called the Big Three. So we're talking about kind of some core and some stability, some engagement of some of those muscles, and really not moving the spine much. Now we are more into finding certain end ranges and load sensitivity, trying to fix those kind of things. Now there's a place for these even within our framework as we work towards the rehabilitation and the healing of those kind of injuries. Anything you want to add on those?
Yeah, so these are more like, as Chris said, spinal stability exercises. So these would be considered, or we would consider like low-level return to function style movements, whereas one of the
first starting points. So, when you're still in having some pain and maybe even have a little bit of ridiculous symptoms, but hopefully you're not there. Hopefully it's all at least centralized to the lower back or buttock, and you're feeling a little better. We'd start some of these.
Yeah. A lot of the principles we typically adhere to, at least in the beginning stages of care, are the McKinsey principles, or directional preference and end range loading. So we'll kind of compare and contrast those. But these Big Three exercises can be used within the framework of what we typically follow in the not only diagnosis and assessment standpoint, but movement standpoint.
When it's appropriate to add these in, and knowing when it's appropriate is the key.
Yeah.
But these are going to be appropriate for the vast majority, and can be used pretty early on in the process, in the rehab process, because you're not really getting to any kind of end range, and they're very low load as well. But eventually they're not the end all be all, because you eventually have to get back to loading and end range loading to get back to daily life. This is a very just starting point.
So these movements, we'll demonstrate all three. They're focused on total core stability, resisting movement, so staying neutral spine, not going into those end ranges of movement, resisting any movement, so staying stiff, creating stiffness, and creating stability through your core. So we'll demonstrate them here. We'll do the curl up, the side plank, and the bird dog. I'll kind of demonstrate them.
Okay. I'll kind of talk you through them. Yep. So the curl up, not in your traditional sense of thinking like a crunch or a sit up like from the past. We can use those movements at certain times. The risk reward becomes kind of low when it comes to a posterior, especially a posterior disc injury. So you got to pick. Now it's okay if you pick one leg bent, one leg straight. I would try it with both to kind of feel what you feel. Most people that have this kind of injury are going to have a unilateral or a one-sided pain. So let's just say Jake is a right-sided pain person. He had some right lower back pain, maybe even some leg pain. He may choose to keep that leg straight first and then have this one bent. Now, it's all individual personal preference. He may feel better if he switches that and goes this one straight and this one bent. It's okay. So he's going to have his hands underneath his back because he wants to feel that slight arch, that slight curve in the lower back, and then he's going to kind of bring his head up off, like that, but not very high. Just high enough so that he feels the abs contract, and not so high that he starts to flatten out or lose that slight curve in the back. That's the key to this one, is maintaining that bit of what we call lumbar lordosis, okay? He's going to hold it for 10 seconds. So hold 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, and then back down. So it's not about contraction of high reps or high loads, because remember it's isometric holds. It's more about endurance. So he's gonna kind of start with a bunch of them first. Let's say 4 sets of 10-second holds, then 2 sets of 10-second holds, then 1 set of 10 seconds. So he's going to kind of ramp it down, or 8-6-4 or 6-4-2, something like that. But each time it's going to try to hold for 10 seconds. So that's the curl up. Next is the side plank. So when he side planks, I would first, the starting part could be with these knees bent and have the hips more extended. So if it's really difficult, you'd want to kind of modify it and just go from the knees. So again, he's just going to get his spine into neutral, lift with the hips, maintain. So it's again, an isometric movement. He's just getting up there and holding for 10 seconds. You want to do both sides. Obviously, we're doing just the right side right here, right side down, I'm sorry. And so he's lifting up to the left, yep. So that would be kind of a starting point. To modify it or make it a little bit tougher if he's able to tolerate it would be all the way legs straight to the heels out there, yep, just like that. You can also change to modify by where you put your hand. So sometimes putting the hand towards the other shoulder or moving it out, or up. Yeah, there's different ways to modify this thing to kind of challenge some of these muscles. He could even add a weight in his hand. He could, kind of reach forward and back, kind of roll a little bit of twisting through there. But that'd be more advanced, okay? So that's the side plank on that one side. Last, so we do both sides. Again, 10-second holds. You want to try to kind of ramp it down, 4-2-1, 6-4-2 in this number of sets. Now, the last one, the bird dog. Let's spin you just a slight bit this way so that you don't hit anything with your legs. So again, neutral spine. Actually, a slight bit of a curve, like keep a slight curve because that's our natural lumbar spine has a natural kind of what's called lordotic curve right there. That's very normal. So what he's going to do is contract here, and then he's going to kick one leg back, or this one, that's fine, and then the opposite arm forward without moving the spine. So he's really having to contract because he wants to fall towards that side. He's going to hold for 10 seconds. So try that again. So bring it out and hold for 10. He's contracting, he's shaking because he's working those muscles. I even sometimes put a little bit of a something up on top of the back to kind of feel like he's going to have to keep it balanced. So I'm going to put a little foam roll back there. Continue, Jake. There he goes. So what if we put a little bit of something here? It's okay, like a tabletop. Don't let that fall off. So you don't want to twist so much that, that this will kind of fall off. Then we know we're getting too much rotation. We want it to be flat and tight and strong. Slow, yep. So he's got a fist. He's kicking his heel back. He's tight. He's still breathing, but he's holding for 10 seconds. That was a little quick. Okay. All right, that's the bird dog. All right. So some other variations on that would be to, you could back it down a little bit. If you're not able to do the arm and leg, you could back it down and just do, so again, I'm not curved here. I'm not overly sagged there. I'm kind of right in that neutral spot. You could do just leg to start with, right? If you can't get that other arm to, it's just too difficult or too painful. So you could do just leg, okay? That would be one level down, I would say. And then another level down would be to do just arm. That would be easier. Yeah. So that's the lowest level. Now we could also do some other variations. So we like to at least add in a little bit of directional preference as well. Yeah. So we use those when we kind of know where we're going. We've already figured out, what the issue is, what the problem is, where the source of the pain is coming from. We will use some specific end range movements, whether it's, flexion, whether it's extension, whether it's a side glide, whatever it is, in-loaded, unloaded, all those kind of things. And then after a visit or two, we start getting things figured out. We'll add these in. You want to get back to early return to function as soon as possible. Yeah. So these would be some of these early ones. Another couple ones that Jake likes to use for sure as well is anything kind of in this supine, like we were with that. We were here. Remember for that curl up, we were kind of coming like that. Well, we could also just do a light. So again, hands can go below, underneath the hips, underneath the lower back to kind of feel that curve, and we could just lightly march and just kind of touch the heels and engaging those deep abdominal muscles, keeping everything tight, okay? That one I know you like from the kind of a marching aspect. So some other ones we can kind of stay here and kind of come, one arm, actually very similar to maybe the opposite of the bird dog, yeah. Still saying neutral spine through here and tight. I kind of like to add a little bit of rotation through the lower trunk by letting the knees kind of fall side to side. But again, this is a little bit different because it's movement. This one's not really that's not a strengthening one. That's more of a mobility movement. I would still add that at the end of this to kind of get a little bit of mobility back. And whether we do a little bit of knees to chest as well or extension, it depends on what that person needed at the time. What else you got for different movements?
Yeah, well, when dealing with spine pain, there's two things we got to look at. We got to look at mobility, find out where your deficits are or where you're moving too much. And then we got to look at stability, so any strength deficits you might have. So in the case of a mobility deficit, we would want to work more towards those end ranges or find out what changes we can make there. If it's more, we see this probably a lot in weightlifters mostly. If you have a stability deficit, you're more likely to have pain on like a back squat or a deadlift or something like that. So if you can use these low-level movements to engage the core all the way around 360 degrees and recruit not just the six-pack muscles everyone thinks about, but your obliques, your transversus, those tiny muscles in the back, multifidus. If you can recruit all those and get those contracting more in harmony, you can use these low-level exercises to build up that stiffness before you go into the more complex lifts. So these are good starting points to add in more return to function type lifting, strength and fitness type movements.
That's an important point, though, as far as understanding, and that's part of the assessment process. What is turning your pain on or up? So if you're a person that injured yourself during lifting and lifting a certain movement, a deadlift, a squat, or whatever, increases the pain or hurt, okay, then there's some certain things. You may not have a directional preference. Or if you're someone who just, the pain came on insidiously, you didn't do anything, you didn't fall, you didn't twist, it just all of a sudden, from whatever repeated movements, sustained postures over time, work, that was what you started to have pain. But you have already figured out or kind of know, I feel worse when I'm sitting, I'm bending, I feel a lot better, the pain almost goes away when I'm up walking around. Not necessarily a strength issue at that point, because you can sit and do stuff, and it's not turned on by a certain lift. It's more of a load issue and a directional preference. So that's part of the assessment process that we would help you through, or someone should help you through.
And you need to have that assessment process because there's so much information out there. You can find all these things that say, these are the best exercises. McGill Big 3 cures everything. And the problem is there isn't a magic bullet. There isn't a magic movement. There isn't a magic thing that just fixes your low back pain. So it's kind of a trial and error process. How does this affect me overall? Mm-hmm. What progress am I seeing? Am I seeing negative changes with this movement? Mm-hmm. And then how do you adapt that and build strength and tolerance? Yep. So the McGill Big 3 is a great set of exercises. Yep. The McKenzie stuff is a great set of exercises, but it's all giving you
it's an assessment.
It's an assessment process.
To know what to do. Which what I was going to say is that if you're a true directional preference responder, keeping the spine in neutral, the only reason you'd probably get better is not because of doing the Big 3, it's probably just time in general. If you really need some kind of end range to fix that problem, you need to explore those end ranges.
Yeah, so
if you just stayed in neutral and then you never moved, first of all, you'd get scared of, you'd never bend or extend again because you'd be fearful of it, which would create a whole different kind of problem. So you still need to, explore those end ranges with time.
And if you don't have a background on these things that we're talking about, from a provider standpoint or even from a patient standpoint, reach out to someone who does that can guide you through these things. Because if you don't have correct guidance, you could potentially be delaying getting better or giving yourself the wrong solution. So
it's not universal.
It's not universal. There's no universal solution in back pain. So if you have questions, hit us below, comment. Otherwise, we'll hit you on the next video.